A man stands at the edge of an open grave in the ancient hill country of Judea, holding a handful of dry, red dirt. You start to see something that this ghost in the machine reading completely destroys. The soul is not an invisible ghost waiting to escape your bones. He says Abel's physical blood is screaming for justice from the soil. When the enemies close in, it is the Nephesh that is hunted. When the famine hits, it is the Nephesh that starves. When the rescue comes, it is the Nephesh that is pulled back from the edge of the grave. The soul is not an ethereal ghost hiding from the physical world. It is the blood and bone reality of a human being surviving in the dirt. In the Hebrew imagination, spirituality is never abstract. It is intensely, unavoidably physical. To praise God is not just to hold a positive thought in your brain. It is to lift physical hands. To repent is not just to feel guilty. It is to wear rough sackcloth and sit in literal ash. To mourn is to tear a linen garment straight down the middle. Your spirituality is only as real as the physical body that carries it. A religion that ignores the physical world is a religion the biblical authors would not even recognize. If the Nephesh is the whole, integrated person, then God does not just care about what you think or what you believe. He cares about your lack of sleep. He cares about the cortisol, flooding your nervous system. He cares about the physical exhaustion settling into your joints. Because an exhausted body is an exhausted Nephesh. The ancient poets understood that to sever the physical from the spiritual is to destroy the human being entirely. It is the living, breathing, bleeding reality of your entire physical and spiritual being. You do not have a soul. You are a soul. But step out of the limestone cave and into the present day, and you find a culture that has completely forgotten how to breathe in the dirt. You sit under the harsh glare of fluorescent lights at 2 in the morning, staring at a glowing screen. Your shoulders are tight. There is a dull, heavy ache at the base of your skull. You are running on lukewarm coffee and nervous energy, dragging your physical body through another week just to get your mind across the finish line. We have inherited the Greek disease. We live as functional dualists. We treat our bodies like heavily abused rental cars, clumsy vehicles we are forced to drive until the engine finally gives out, hoping the invisible, important part of us makes it to heaven safely. We divide our existence cleanly down the middle. We label reading and praying as spiritual, while treating sleeping, eating, and resting as purely secular necessities. When you experience profound anxiety, when your chest tightens and your breath goes shallow, the modern religious impulse is to treat it purely as a spiritual failure. We tell ourselves to pray harder. We tell ourselves to have more faith. We try to read our way out of a panic attack. We treat the physical symptoms as if they are merely an annoying distraction from the real, invisible spiritual work happening in our minds. This is not just a theological technicality for academics to argue about in seminary libraries. It is a diagnosis of how we view our own humanity. But your biology is not a distraction. It is your Nephesh. Your exhaustion is not a spiritual deficiency. It is the physical warning light of a created being. If God formed humanity as an integrated, breathing whole, then the way you treat your physical body is inherently theological. Yet we have built an entire modern religious culture that praises people for burning themselves out for God. We act as if destroying the physical vessel somehow pleases the Creator who formed it from the dirt. We celebrate the neglect of the body as a sign of spiritual maturity. But the God of the Hebrew Scriptures does not demand a detached mind. He commands a Sabbath rest. He demands that the physical body stop working, that the muscles recover, that the heavy, grinding labor of the week comes to a complete halt. Rest is not a concession to weakness. It is the restoration of the Nephesh. When Elijah the prophet collapsed in the desert under a broom tree, begging to die because the depression and fear were so heavy, God did not send an angel to give him a sermon. He did not ask Elijah to pray a prayer of repentance. He sent an angel to bake him a warm loaf of bread on hot stones and told him to go to sleep. We have spent 2,000 years trying to escape the physical world. When you believe your body is just a temporary shell, you start to treat physical bread and physical sleep for a spiritual crisis. Because the two cannot be separated. If you are treating your body like an enemy, to be conquered, you are fighting the very design of your existence. God does not want to rescue your invisible spirit from the physical world. He wants to redeem the whole thing. The dust matters just as much as the breath. And the ultimate proof of this is not found in the Old Testament. It is found in a locked room in Jerusalem, 3 days after an execution. The door is locked. The heavy wooden beam is dropped into place. The lamps burn low, casting long, frantic shadows against the stone walls. The men inside are terrified. They are hiding from the very soldiers who just drove iron spikes through their rabbi's wrists. Every sound in the street makes them flinch. Every footstep sounds like an executioner. Then, a figure stands in the room. No warning. No unlocked door. No footsteps. The men freeze. The breath catches in their throats. Pure panic takes over. Look at Luke, chapter 24. Luke tells us exactly what they assume in that terrifying second. They think they are seeing a spirit. They assume the Greek philosophy is true. They think they are staring at an immaterial ghost, a detached soul floating up from the grave. Physical life as something to be endured and abandoned. You ignore your physical exhaustion. You divide your life into the spiritual and the secular, leaving its ruined body behind. Jesus speaks. He does not offer a theological lecture. He does not explain the metaphysics of heaven. He offers his physical body. He holds out his arms. He says, "Touch me and see." He shows them the jagged, unhealed holes in his wrists. He points to the torn flesh of his feet. A ghost does not have bones. An immaterial spirit does not have scars. The men stare in absolute disbelief. The text says they still cannot fully process what they are seeing. So Jesus asks a question that shatters dualism forever. "Do you have anything here to eat?" They hand him a piece of broiled fish. The smell of char and salt cuts through the stale air of the locked room. He takes it. He chews it. He swallows it right in front of them. A phantom does not eat fish. A detached spirit does not digest food. A ghost does not have a throat to swallow with. This is the absolute climax of the biblical story. This is the ultimate answer to Plato and his entire academy. The resurrection is not an evacuation from the physical world. It is the permanent reclamation of it. When God defeats death, he does not do it by rescuing the invisible parts of us. You prioritize saving invisible spirits while ignoring the empty stomachs and physical suffering of the people right in front of you, and abandoning the physical creation to rot. He does it by raising a physical nephesh from the dead. Jesus does not leave his human body in the tomb so he can return to the Father as pure, invisible energy. He walks out of the limestone cave with lungs that breathe oxygen. He brings his physical body with him. He takes the dirt, the blood, the nephesh, straight into the throne room of the universe. He redeems the dust. He honors the flesh. He permanently validates the physical reality of human existence. God does not make mistakes. He did not create the physical world just to burn it down and start over with ghosts. The nephesh is not a temporary rental. It is the eternal design. And if the creator of the universe treats physical bodies with that much profound respect, it leaves us staring at a deeply uncomfortable mirror. We have built an entire religious vocabulary around the concept of saving souls. When we use that phrase, we almost always mean securing a future destination for invisible ghosts. We stand in climate-controlled sanctuaries, singing songs about flying away from this broken world, treating the earth like a sinking ship. If we get this wrong, we fundamentally misunderstand what God actually created in the beginning. We miss why Jesus spent so much of his ministry touching lepers. We act as if the gospel is just a metaphysical life raft, designed only to carry our disembodied minds to safety while the physical universe burns. We look at the broken, physical suffering of the world, the empty stomachs, the shivering bodies sleeping on concrete sidewalks, and we prioritize handing out theological answers to save their invisible spirits while completely ignoring their freezing hands. But if a human being is a nephesh, if the dirt and the breath are eternally inseparable, then our entire definition of ministry is shattered. If the soul is the throat, then every physical act of mercy is deeply theological. Feeding a hungry stomach is not a secular distraction from the real spiritual work. It is the direct restoration of a starving soul. When you give someone a glass of cold water, you are not just hydrating a temporary shell. You are ministering to the Nephesh. When you volunteer at a clinic, when you bandage a bleeding wound, when you sit in a hospital room and hold the fragile, paper-thin skin of someone who is dying, you are not just performing social work. You are doing holy, eternal work, because God does not divide the human being in half, and neither can we. We spend so much time trying to transcend our humanity. We push through our physical exhaustion, ignoring the dull ache in our lower backs and the nervous tremor in our hands. Because we think God only values our invisible prayers and our intellectual faith and opening blind eyes, we miss the entire climax of the biblical story. To feel the weight of this ancient reality, you have to start in the dust. We punish our flesh, assuming the Creator is pleased when we neglect the very vessel He carefully formed. The Greek philosophers wanted us to climb a ladder out of the physical world. They wanted us to shed the heavy weight of meat and bone and float away into the ether of pure, detached thought. But the God of the ancient Hebrew text did the exact opposite. He climbed down the ladder. He stepped directly into the dirt. He took on a nervous system. He felt the sharp, physical sting of the Roman whip on a human back, the suffocating weight of the fluid filling his lungs on a wooden cross, and the cold, terrifying reality of a limestone grave. And then he carried those physical scars straight through the other side of death. He did not come to rescue you from your humanity. He came to redeem it. And when you trace that single, unbroken thread from the mud of the first garden to the broiled fish in the upper room, it completely reassembles the biblical story. God breathed into the red dirt, and a living throat gasped for air. The earth brought forth wild beasts, and the ancient text called them living souls. A hunted king panted for water and declared his physical craving was a spiritual cry. You have to go back to the very first moment a human lung expanded. You have to watch the Creator of the universe get his hands dirty. A priest poured blood on a bronze altar and revealed that the soul of the creature was right there in the crimson. A terrified prophet collapsed under a broom tree, and heaven answered his spiritual despair with a warm loaf of bread. A dead rabbi stood in a locked room and shattered a Greek philosophy forever by swallowing a piece of fish. Same dust, same breath. One beautiful, unbroken design. But maybe the part that stays with me most is the throat, the fragile, desperately vulnerable neck of the ancient desert wanderer. We spend our entire lives trying to build a detached, intellectual faith that is completely immune to pain and exhaustion. But the Creator did not define us by our intellect. He defined us by our hunger. Our deepest spiritual reality is not found when we finally manage to transcend our physical weakness. It is found when we admit that we are starving. If you are in a season where your body is breaking down, under the heavy weight of your life, Genesis chapter 2 is a place to sit. If the exhaustion in your bones feels like a spiritual failure, or the anxiety tightening in your chest makes you wonder if your faith is somehow defective. But before we can see what the Hebrew writers actually wrote, we have to uncover exactly how this idea was stolen. Look at the dirt. Your biology is not a distraction. Your physical limitations are not a sin. The God who formed you from the mud knows exactly how heavy the clay can be. He does not demand a ghost. And may the God who has never once asked you to abandon your humanity meet you in your physical exhaustion and breathe his life into the dust of your reality. The midday sun beats down on the back of his neck. The wind scatters the dust from his palm before it even hits the linen shroud. The greatest theological heist in history did not happen with swords. It happened with a single philosophy. The idea of a trapped, immaterial ghost did not originate in the hills of Judea. It was born in the shade of polished marble columns in Athens, roughly 400 years before Jesus walked the shores of Galilee. A Greek philosopher named Plato formalized a way of seeing the world that would eventually conquer the Western mind. Plato taught his students that the entire universe was fundamentally divided into two completely distinct and opposing realms. There was the material world, the realm of dirt, of decaying flesh, of rust and sweat and physical hunger. And floating high above it, there was the realm of the forms, a pure, invisible, spiritual reality that was eternal and completely flawless. In the Greek imagination, the human body was a tragedy. It was a heavy, degrading prison made of meat and bone. Plato argued that the highest goal of human existence was to detach your mind from the physical world. The philosopher's ultimate job was to prepare the invisible spirit to finally shed its heavy, physical casing and float back up to the realm of pure thought. This philosophy, known as dualism, essentially split the human being completely in half. It created a hierarchy where, resting at the bottom of the limestone cut, he has just buried someone he loves, and somewhere in the silence, standing among the mourners, everything spiritual was inherently good, and everything physical was inherently evil. When the early church expanded out of the Middle East and into the sprawling Greco-Roman world, the ancient text of the Hebrew scriptures collided violently with the philosophy of the Greeks, and that collision produced a devastating compromise. As Greek-speaking converts read the ancient text, they began subconsciously importing their own cultural definitions into the translations. They took the unified, messy, physical Hebrew concept of life and crammed it into the clean, clinical Greek concept of a detachable, immortal ghost. This was not a harmless mistranslation. It was a surgical amputation of the Hebrew worldview. When you read the Bible through a Greek lens, salvation devolves into a cosmic evacuation plan. You start believing that God only cares about rescuing the invisible part of you, leaving the physical world to burn and decay. You begin to treat your own physical body as an enemy to be conquered, rather than a temple to be honored. But the authors of the Hebrew scriptures did not think like Plato. They did not sit in sanitized academies debating abstract categories of existence. Someone whispers a variation of the phrase, "We have all heard 1,000 times in the face of death." They lived in heavy tents woven from coarse goat hair. They smelled the sharp iron scent of animal blood pouring across bronze altars. They survived in a brutal, unforgiving landscape where a single failed rain cycle meant absolute starvation for their children. To the Hebrew mind, a human being was not a two-part machine built out of opposing components. The soul is not an invisible prisoner waiting for a jailbreak. It is the dirt that breathes. To understand what they actually believed about the essence of a human being, you have to look at the exact words they used to describe it. And the most important word in their ancient vocabulary does not point to an invisible ghost hiding in your chest. It points to a physical, desperately vulnerable space that you use every single day. The Hebrew definition of a soul begins at the back of your throat. A man wanders into the wilderness of Zin. The sun bakes the cracked earth. The goatskin canteen runs completely dry. His lips split open in the heat. A fine, bitter dust coats the back of his mouth. He is not contemplating high philosophy. He is not searching for spiritual enlightenment. He is gasping for air. He is desperately scanning the horizon for a pool of water. At least their soul is in heaven now. It sounds comforting. It sounds biblical. Most people assume that inside of you, right now, in the unforgiving landscape of the ancient Near East, the most vulnerable part of the human anatomy is not the heart. It is the neck. It is the throat. It is the narrow, fragile passage where breath enters the lungs. It is the conduit where water reaches a burning stomach. It is the channel where bread sustains the blood. Cut the throat, and life ends in seconds. Block the throat, and pure panic takes over. The throat is the gateway of survival. Armies march across the desert. Men collapse from dehydration. Women grind grain on heavy stone just to keep their families breathing for one more day. Life is a constant, desperate negotiation with hunger and thirst. In this brutal world, you are your appetite. You are your physical need. When the ancient Hebrews wanted to talk about the essence of a living being, they did not point to an invisible ghost. They pointed to the neck. They pointed to the physical center of craving and breath. The soul is not a weightless spirit detached from physical need. It is a starving throat desperate for life. Picture a deer hunted in a dry wadi. A predator pursues it through the jagged limestone rocks. The animal finally stops. Its chest heaves violently. Its tongue hangs out. It pants for a stream of water to cool its boiling blood. King David watches this kind of physical desperation. There is a glowing, immortal, immaterial ghost trapped in a cage of flesh. The assumption is that this physical body is just a temporary rental in the wilderness of Judah. He writes a song about it in Psalm 42. But when he describes his own longing for God, he does not say his immaterial mind is hoping for heaven. He uses the exact same imagery as the hunted animal. He writes that his very throat, his craving, empty, physical being is panting for the presence of the Creator. The physical craving is the spiritual reality. The two cannot be separated. Hunger is a spiritual state. Thirst is a theological condition. The throat is where the breath goes in. It is where the deep, aching hunger lives. But to see how this physical craving actually defines the origin of humanity, you have to go back much further than David in the wilderness. You have to go back to a garden. You have to go back to the moment the very first throat was formed in the mud. The text that shapes our entire understanding of human origins sits right at the beginning of the scroll. Genesis chapter 2, verse 7. God forms a human from the dust of the ground and breathes into his nostrils the breath of life. And almost every traditional English Bible tells us the exact same result. The man became a living soul. Cara clumsy. Decaying shell holding you back. The real you, the eternal you, is the soul, waiting for the day it can finally evacuate. For centuries, we picture God taking a pre-existing, invisible spirit and stuffing it into a shell of red clay. But the word translated as soul here is the Hebrew Nephesh. It appears over 700 times in the Old Testament, and its range of meaning is stunningly physical. We have already seen its root, meaning the throat, the center of physical craving and breath. But by the time of Genesis, the word Nephesh has expanded to describe the entire, integrated, breathing creature. A Nephesh is a living, consuming, physical being. There is a detail hiding in plain sight that completely shatters the Greek definition of a ghost in a machine. And it happens just one chapter earlier. In Genesis chapter 1, verse 24, God speaks out over the unformed earth and commands the land to produce living creatures, livestock, and wild beasts. If you look at the Hebrew scroll, the phrase used to describe every creeping thing, every lion, and every bird is Nephesh Chaya, living souls. The animals do not have immortal spirits. They are living, breathing beings. Anything that has a throat, anything that breathes the air, the physical world, and float upward into a purely spiritual existence. We treat the body like the wrapper, and the soul like the candy inside. Anything that bleeds and hungers is a nephesh. If realizing that the biblical authors viewed your physical body with this much theological weight is stirring up questions you've never considered, you're exactly who this channel is for. Drop a thought in the comments and hit subscribe. Because every week, we go deeper into the text than you knew was possible. So the man opening his eyes in the dirt is not a vessel holding a ghost. He is a unified masterpiece of mud and wind. The math of Genesis 2 is not body plus soul equals human. The math is body plus breath equals soul. The soul is not a detachable piece of your identity. It is the complete, integrated reality of your breathing body. When God breathes into the dirt, He is not installing a spiritual battery into a physical shell. He is animating the entire physical structure. The nephesh is the whole person, your mind, your blood, your stomach, your desires, your aching knees, and your singing voice. You cannot separate the spiritual from the physical any more than you can separate the words on a page from the ink that forms them. This unified view of human life changes how you read every prayer ever recorded in the ancient texts. But if you look closer at the dirt of the first garden, at the breath that animates it, at the very language of the Hebrew text, because when the biblical writers experienced profound spiritual pain, they didn't just feel it in their invisible minds. They felt it in their bones. A man huddles in the absolute darkness of a limestone cave near the Dead Sea. The air is damp. The stone floor is cold against his bare knees. Outside, the narrow entrance, soldiers with bronze-tipped spears are hunting him like an animal. His heart hammers against his ribs so violently it physically hurts his chest. This is David, the warrior king, running for his life. And when he writes songs in the middle of this terror, he does not write about a detached, invisible mind floating safely above his circumstances. He writes Psalm 6. He does not say his intellect is troubled. He says his bones are terrified. He says his bed is soaking wet with physical tears. He says his Nephesh is in deep anguish. When the ancient Hebrew writers cry out to God, they do not split themselves in half. They do not treat their bodies as irrelevant shells waiting to be discarded. In the book of Leviticus, the priests are told a detail that would completely horrify a Greek philosopher. The text says that the nephesh of the flesh is actually in the blood. The soul is in the blood. When Cain murders Abel in the opening chapters of Genesis, God does not tell Cain that his brother's invisible spirit is waiting in heaven.